Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays. Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. I'm the stat guy, Dustin Reese. I'd like to talk about the Warriors close out the Western Conference Finals last night over the Mavs. Pretty much dominated most of that game. How you doing today, Dustin?
Oh, doing well, Chris. Just woke up, so figured I'd hop on since I just woke up.
What did you think of that game last night? Warriors dominated most of that game. It was a little close in the first half, but then that second quarter on, like the second half, second quarter on, the Warriors pretty much controlled most of the game, other than the last 3 minutes of the third quarter, where they looked like they were going to let the Mavs back into it there for a minute.
I mean, when it comes to the Warriors, they are the only team that I know that can flip the switch and turn on the playoff switch whenever they want, and then it just stays on. Usually when you talk about teams having success, they have success throughout the year, or they have like a long period of success where they start peaking at a certain time, like the Phoenix Suns did during the regular season, where they played at such a high level for so long, you started to wonder if they were going to struggle at any point, versus Golden State had their moments, but they also had their moments where they struggled, like when they lost 9 games in a row. I think it was right after the All-Star break. They lost 9 games in a row. And then you get to the playoffs and Golden State flips the switch, and it's a completely different looking basketball team. And once they flip that switch, it's very hard for anybody to turn it off, which is why the Warriors have looked the way they've looked so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Klay Thompson had his best game of the series last night. He was on fire last night. You can't give him wide open looks in the first quarter, because if he starts hitting a couple, you're in trouble for the rest of the game.
See, and that's the problem too that I think a lot of people are underestimating the Warriors with right now. I still don't think Klay Thompson is 100% healthy at this point. I think he's close, but I don't think he's going to be 100% healthy until next year. So this is a scary thought to think about if you're getting this kind of production from him now and he's not even 100%. But the other thing is, whenever you play Golden State, you have Stephen Curry, you have Jordan Poole, and you have Klay Thompson. You have to pick your poison basically on who you are going to leave open and just hope that they are missing shots, and 9 out of 10 times they're not going to miss open looks. So unless you want to play Golden State straight up man-to-man and take all 3 of those guys out, it's not going to work, because Curry plays better off the ball than he does with the ball. Thompson plays better off the ball than he does with the ball. Then you have guys like Wiggins and Jordan Poole who can do a little bit of both. They're so difficult to guard straight up that eventually somebody's going to get open, and when they're open, you just have to hope that they miss shots, and usually they don't.
And Kayvon Looney's really stepped up too underneath with his rebounding, and even scoring some, but his rebounding was great last night.
Yeah, Kayvon Looney is the 2010, well, we're past 2010 now, but the 2010s decade version of Dennis Rodman, where he's just used basically to get your rebounds, he's used to extend possessions, and if you can get any kind of offense out of him, it's a plus. I mean, he's always been a guy that was going to give you kind of in that 6 to 8, 10-point range every night, but he's also been a guy that's going to give you 8 to 10 rebounds every night. So he's exactly kind of like that Dennis Rodman type of player, where you're using him for defense, you're using him for rebounds, you're using him for his physicality, and then whatever offense you can get them, you'll take from it.
Oh yeah, and with the Warriors, I think that's what's going to give whoever wins between Boston and Miami tonight, which we'll talk about, which I think is going to be Boston. But when they play Boston, I think the Warriors' ball movement and being able to play off the ball is going to be the key for them, because that makes it a little less, makes it harder for Boston to use as much physicality if you're just playing ISO ball like some of these other teams do. I think being able to play off the ball is going to help the Warriors, especially against the Boston team that's going to be a little bit bigger in size.
It will help Golden State, but at the same time, Boston does a good job of playing off the ball as well, especially when you got guys like Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum who can play very well off the ball. But their big difference is, even if they play well off the ball, there's not a player on Boston that's going to be able to run with Stephen Curry a full 48 minutes. The amount of running that Curry does in a game, he is going to wear that Boston team down. It might not happen in game one. It might not happen in game two. But the more you chase him around on that court, the harder it's going to be for you to defend him. And by game 3 or 4, he's going to have a lot of those Boston defenders worn down, whether it's Peyton Pritchard, whether it's Marcus Smart, whether they go and try to put Jaylen Brown on him. He's going to wear those guys down. He's going to get himself open looks, and he's going to knock those shots down when he gets them.
And him wearing them guys down is going to affect Boston offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And because it reminds me of Reggie Miller back in the '90s, because that's what Reggie would do. He ran around so much that like you said, by the third game of the series, the guys you're putting on him are wore out.
It reminds me of what J.J. Redick did in college.
Yep.
When he was at Duke, where I think they said J.J. Redick would play and he would run like 12 to 15 miles a game, just running back and forth, trying to create space. And by the second half, like whoever was guarding him in the first half was like, I don't want to guard him anymore.
Yeah, and then they're on the offensive end. They're struggling because they're tired. So, I mean, it can affect the game big time. Do you? We had talked about a little bit on the morning show. Do you think that Curry should have got the Western Conference Finals MVP?
I do, but I also think you could have given co-MVPs and give it to Klay Thompson also, because there was 2 games in that series that Klay Thompson carried the load over Curry. I think overall Curry was the more consistent one, which is why he got it, because he didn't really have like a great game. I think he had like one game where he had like the 41 points, but outside of that, he didn't really have those great games, but he also didn't have really a bad game either. He was consistent, versus Klay Thompson had his 32-point game. He had like another 30-point game, but he also had like a 16 and a 17-point game. So we had those 2 kind of off nights, but I think that's why Curry got it, just from the consistency side of things. But I said it even in the morning show too, and when I commented, I think Luka Doncic should have got it. Regardless if Dallas lost, Luka Doncic was the best player in that series.
Yes.
He single-handedly kept Dallas in a lot of those games, at least for 2 or 3 quarters, until Dallas's lack of overall depth showed. And I know they typically don't give MVPs to losing teams, but Luka Doncic, I think, deserved it more than anybody, just because of how much he helped Dallas even stay in those games.
Well, I agree with you. And I was sitting here after the game ended, and me and my girlfriend was eating some dinner, and I was watching the post game. And I told her, I said, I want to see who they give the MVP to. I said, because I think they'll give it to Steph, because he was the most consistent on that winning team. But I said, nobody could argue if they would give it to Doncic, even though his team lost. I mean, like you said, best player on the court. He had almost 40 points every game. Except I know last night he didn't have a great game, but he's still in that third quarter started to bring them back. It kind of looked like they were going to get back in the game. They got within, I think, 8, and then it was kind of flipped from the other game. Got within 8, but then they couldn't get no closer.
Exactly.
But if Klay Thompson gets hot, Warriors are going to be tough in the finals. If he can play consistently a little bit better than he's been playing, and I agree with you, he's going to be a lot better next year. Injuries like that, you're usually better in year 2 than what you are the first year you come back.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think about the Celtics and the Heat tonight?
It's kind of falling into kind of what I predicted earlier in the week, where I said the 2 teams would split those first 4 games, and then Boston would grab the advantage late, which it looks like they've done. They've kind of started to figure out Miami. They've taken Miami out of their game, and they're just kind of doing what they did against Milwaukee, where they're just grinding you out, finding different ways to beat you, whether it's from the perimeter, whether it's from isolation ball with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, whether it's playing defense. They're just doing all the little things right now that make the biggest difference. And I don't know, you look at that Miami Heat roster, and they have a deeper roster, in my opinion, just because they can go 10, 11 guys deep every single night versus Boston usually only goes 8 deep. But you have to wonder how healthy that Miami roster is. Jimmy Butler's obviously not 100%. Tyler Hero's not 100%. Duncan Robinson has been missing in action for about a month, so they need to put an APB out on him. I mean, Kyle Lowry's played well, but Max Strauss has played well, and Bam Adebayo's played well. But when your best player in Jimmy Butler's not 100%, when your best three-point shooter in Tyler Hero's not 100%, and when your other good three-point shooter in Duncan Robinson's been missing in action for about a month, you're at an uphill battle. And I think Miami's just getting to the point now where they're just running out of gas, and Boston just carrying that momentum they've had since January, where they had the best record in the Eastern Conference after January.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Heat have too many injuries and they're wore out. I think Boston's wore them out, and then with the injuries, they just don't have enough right now. And Kyle Lowry didn't do nothing last game, and you need him to step up with Jimmy Butler, because I don't think Jimmy Butler's healthy. Something's wrong with Jimmy Butler, because he went from dominating, really playing right there with all them guys, and in the last two or three games, he hasn't showed up.
So well, he did hurt his knee in Game 3, and did not return for the second half. And then he ended up, I think, coming back in Game 4, but I don't know how healthy he was in Game 4. So obviously there is still something wrong with his knee at this point. It's just a matter of, I think he realizes now where if he doesn't play, Miami doesn't have a chance at all to win a single game. Where if he at least goes out there and tries to show that, hey, I'm healthy enough to give us 20 points, Miami's got a much better shot to win a game when he's on the court as opposed to when he's not on the court.
You think Miami wins tonight and forces a Game 7, or you think the Celtics close it out tonight?
I think Celtics close it out tonight. It's in Boston. They have all the momentum right now. I mean, if Jimmy Butler's not 100%, can Miami count on him to carry that load? I mean, I think he can, but I don't think you can count on him to carry that load if he's not 100%.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Boston closes out tonight. I think the Celtics are just – Boston's injuries, they've been able to manage them a little bit better than the Heat. I think their injuries were a little worse, and that's a factor. And then, of course, I just think they're getting tired from having to try to recover from them injuries. And then some of their guys haven't stepped up. But I think the Celtics win it tonight, and then next Thursday we'll have a Warriors and Celtics. I think Warriors and Celtics will be a real good series. I'm looking forward to that.
Boy, I don't know. I think it has the potential to be a really good series. I just don't know if it goes past 5 games. I really don't.
Who you got winning?
Golden State.
Golden State. I had Golden State in 6.
They've been here. They've done this before. And you can go back to when Cleveland beat them, and then I think the year that Toronto beat them. Toronto beat them the other year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of those series changed because of 2 things. The Cleveland series changed because Draymond Green got ejected and then was suspended the next game, which gave Cleveland all the momentum in the world to take a 3-1 deficit, turn it into 3-3. Then you get to Game 7 and anything can happen. You go to that Toronto series when Toronto won. Not only did you have a Klay Thompson injury, but you had a Kevin Durant injury.
Yep.
2 of your best players were injured, and Golden State still forced 6 games. Take those 2 equations out of it, Golden State probably wins 5, if not 6 championships in a row.
Yeah.
And then they go and have those players injured last year with Curry being out and Thompson being out. They were able basically to take the year off last year, get the roster back to 100%, get healthy, give Curry and Thompson kind of that extended rest that they weren't getting from making the finals for so long. And now they come back this year healthy, and they're back basically right where they were the 5 years prior. This is a Golden State team that realistically could have won 5 championships in a row, and they could be on the verge of winning 6 of the last 7 championships if things fell into their place. Versus Boston, yes, Boston's a great team, but there's nobody on that Boston roster outside of Al Horford that has had NBA Finals experience. And that alone is going to be a huge advantage to Golden State just because this is like a practice for them. They've been there, done that. There's nothing that you can throw at them in a finals that they haven't seen.
Yeah. I think it has the potential to be a good series. One thing that worries me about Boston as well is they can go 3 or 4 minutes on scoring droughts where they don't score. And if you do that against Golden State, you can find yourself behind by 20 points real quick.
Well, that's the other thing that I'm worried about with Boston too, and we've seen it. We've seen it against Milwaukee a couple games, and we've seen it against Miami a couple games where they've lived and died by a 3-pointer. And they've had a game where they've gone 15 to 50 or whatever it was, or however bad it was. If you're going to shoot 53 pointers against Golden State, you got to make at least 20. Because if you don't make 23 pointers, Golden State's going to make 23 pointers, and you're pretty much killing the only advantage you have. And that's basically the one advantage that Golden State has over anybody is they will shoot more 3-pointers than 2-pointers. But they can shoot more 3-pointers than 2-pointers because they're going to make about 20 a game. So if you're going to try to compete with them and go 3-pointer for 3-pointer with them, you better be able to keep up the pace that they're making them. Otherwise, you're going to be down by double digits in a hurry because they can at least have 3 guys that are going to get you 5 or 6 made threes a night versus Boston's got 2.
Yeah. And if Golden State don't turn the ball over, that's been one of their weaknesses. If they don't turn the ball over, I think they'll be good in that series because of all the scoring they can get. And to your point on missing the threes, if Celtics keep chucking up threes and missing, Warriors will get a lot of fast break buckets off them long rebounds.
Yep.
I mean, that's something Draymond Green's great at. Looney's pretty good passer. I mean, they get that rebound, they get the ball out quick.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that Boston's done a much better job against Miami in terms of limiting the fast break, just because I don't think Miami really has a team that likes to do the fast break, just because Miami's more of like that 1990s grinded out style offense where they just kind of pass the ball around, look for the open shooter, things like that. But if you go back to that Milwaukee Bucks series, Boston, up until Game 7 when Boston won by 35, Boston struggled in transition defense. They had a very difficult time getting back to contain Giannis. They had a very difficult time getting back in transition defense where it often led to a foul or an open look that Milwaukee couldn't knock down. If you're struggling in transition defense against Milwaukee, you have another thing coming against Golden State.
Yeah, they play at the fastest pace in the league.
Yep.
Sports guy Jado says when the Celtics win this game tonight, it's going to be Warriors in 6. That's what I have is Warriors in 6. You had Warriors in 5.
I'm going to say the Warriors in 6, but I'm not going to be shocked if it only goes 5.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it only went 5 either. But I do like the Warriors. I think the Celtics will close it out tonight. Let's shift over to the NFL for a minute. What do you think about this Colin Kaepernick getting a workout? Or coming out, they're saying that the Raiders are really saying that it was positive. They're really not. They're really keeping it pretty, trying to keep it pretty hush hush. Do you think this if he don't get signed with the Raiders, do you think it might open up opportunities for him to get a workout somewhere else now that finally a team went ahead and gave him a workout?
I mean, it's been long overdue. He's deserved a workout for a while, and the fact that the Raiders gave him one kind of says something, just because the Raiders are one of those franchises that are more willing to give players a second chance than a lot of other franchises do, so it makes sense that he got a workout with them. They traded Marcus Mariota to the Atlanta Falcons this offseason, so they do need a backup quarterback behind Derek Carr. And Kaepernick gives them that option. And with Josh McDaniels coming in as the new head coach in Vegas this year, I'm very curious to see what Josh McDaniels could do with Colin Kaepernick. Because not only would he be the backup quarterback, but I'm pretty sure Josh McDaniels would have specific packages designed specifically for Colin Kaepernick to get him in the game more frequently. Whether it's read options, whether it's QB draws, whether it's jet sweeps or anything like that. I could see Josh McDaniels designing quite a few plays for Colin Kaepernick just to get him on the field to make defenses kind of guess what's coming next. But if I were Colin Kaepernick, and I know he's not going to do this because that's just not how he is, I would not worry about the NFL this year. I would sign with the XFL next year when the XFL returns. That way, whoever you sign with in the XFL is going to be your franchise. It's going to be your team to showcase what you can do as a quarterback on the field. and it's going to be the opportunity that he needs where all eyes are going to be on him every single Saturday or Sunday when the XFL is on to show that he can still play at this level. You saw what happened to PJ Walker when he was in the XFL. He came out of nowhere, burst on the scene in the XFL as the league's best player, and ends up signing a 3-year deal with the Carolina Panthers the next offseason where, yes, he's been the backup quarterback, but he still made 7 or 8 starts the past 3 years. So his success in the XFL was kind of that stepping stone to get him into the NFL, where Colin Kaepernick could go the same route. You go to the XFL and you have immediate success with whatever franchise you land with. That's your stepping stone to get back into the NFL, and teams are going to look at him differently then, I think, as opposed to right now.
Yeah, I saw you put that in the comments in the morning show, and I agree 100%. Because like going back to Walker, before he went to the XFL and he was going to be the MVP of that season if they would have got to finish it before the pandemic. But before that, he had just been on some practice squads, hadn't got an opportunity at all, and like you said, ended up signing a 3 or 4 year deal with Carolina after that. And it'd be perfect because I also think if Kaepernick wants to try to be a starter, that the route you're talking about would be the best way, because you go show you can still play in the XFL, then you'll have a shot to maybe get a starting job instead of a backup job like you would get with the Raiders.
Yeah, and if you look at the coaches that they've announced for the XFL right now, you have Bob Stoops, Wade Phillips, Terrell Buckley, Reggie Barlow, Anthony Beck, who was a former tight end, Rod Woodson, Hines Ward, and Jim Haslett. Don't you think that Hines Ward, Rod Woodson, or Wade Phillips would love to have Colin Kaepernick?
Oh, yeah.
Because all 3 of them have played with Colin Kaepernick. Oh, no, not Rod Woodson, but Wade Phillips has played against Colin Kaepernick as a defensive coordinator. Obviously, Hines Ward has played against him. So they've both seen Colin Kaepernick at his best.
Hazlitt probably played coach.
Yeah, Hazlitt would have played in Washington when he was a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the XFL to come back. I liked it when they started it back up before the pandemic took it down. But I think now, since they're even doing a little partnership thing with the NFL, I think the XFL is going to be one of the spring leagues that will actually make it.
I think it's going to be the only league that makes it, because honestly, I don't think the USFL have the funds to compete with the XFL.
Have you watched any of the USFL?
I have.
What do you think of it?
I have mixed thoughts on it. So from a quality of play, it's a major step back from what the XFL brought to the table.
I agree.
The XFL's quality of play was far superior than what the USFL gives you. But you also have to take into consideration the rosters that the XFL had were, I'm not going to call them NFL rosters, but I guess you could call them NFL rosters, because the rosters that the XFL had were basically NFL rosters with players that once were in the NFL and got cut and were looking to get back, or players that were on the practice squads trying to get into the NFL as it is.
Yeah.
The USFL has Kyle Sloter, they have Jordan Tamau, and they have Shea Patterson as kind of the face of the franchise, or face of the league. But outside of that, they really don't have any players that are going to contribute on an NFL roster. So it's kind of looking at more like a practice squad or rec league games, just because they don't have that talent that the XFL had. I think from a broadcast side of things, the broadcast side of things is better than what the AAF brought to the table. But of the 3 spring leagues that we've seen, I put the USFL as the 3rd out of the 3 in terms of overall play, just because they don't have the names that the AAF and the XFL had. You can see it when they're on the field that the talent level is just not there. And when you have to have all 8 of your teams play in one city, that's a problem. Because unless Birmingham is playing, which is the host city, they're not even getting 1,000 people at these games. And these tickets are going for $10 a piece. So you could pay $40 and watch 4 football games on a weekend. And yet they can't even get more than 900 people at a game unless Birmingham plays, just because the quality of play has not been that good.
Why are they just playing in one city? Basically because they don't have the money?
They don't have the money, yes. The travel expenses, it cuts down on the travel expenses where everybody can just stay in the hotels in Birmingham and all that stuff can be paid for. and it just kind of saves as much money as possible, knowing that the last 2 spring leagues folded because of COVID and because of financial issues. But there's nobody from Pittsburgh that's going to fly from Pittsburgh to Birmingham to watch the Pittsburgh Maulers play. There's nobody from Tampa Bay that's going to drive from Tampa Bay to Birmingham to watch the Tampa Bay Bandits play. Like, these teams should have been put in these markets like the AAF and the XFL did. Granted, you could have put them in smaller stadiums. You didn't have to put them in NFL stadiums. You could have put them in soccer stadiums to kind of limit the attendance. But people needed to be able to witness their teams in bigger cities. And I think the USFL just dropped the ball by putting it all in one city. I think it already killed their reputation.
What's going on, Rob?
Casting.
Grab here.
You're muted.
Let me see.
How y'all feeling? My bad. How y'all feeling today?
Oh, we're doing good. Have you watched any of the USFL?
I have not. I won't lie to you.
I've watched a little bit of it. I haven't been able to get into it. I agree with Dustin. The quality of play just don't match up to what the XFL had.
I will tell you this though. Today, the Canadian Football League preseason starts today. So I'm actually going to be watching the CFL more than the USFL because at least you're getting higher quality play. And when I was looking at the rosters the other day, there's 15 former NFL players that are in the CFL this year. And one of them is JT Barrett, who's actually going to be quarterbacking this year in the CFL. So I'm curious to see how that pans out for him.
Yeah, I'm more so waiting on the XFL, and that's just because of the partnership they got with The Rock. So I'm interested to see what route and direction they take it. But other than that, NFL for me.
Did you watch much of the XFL before the pandemic?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I watched it every weekend, and I really like the XFL. Don't get me wrong, NFL's number one.
Yeah.
I know you want to talk about the Warriors, so we'll talk about the Warriors again for a minute, so you can get your stuff out.
Donation. I can't.
What did you think of that game last night? They pretty much dominated that game.
You know what? The Warriors came out with a game plan. They saw what happened in Game 4. They came out with more energy. They weren't playing lackadaisical, and they really made it a point of emphasis to focus on Luka. They zeroed in on him. They made every shot he took a tough shot. Every time he drove the ball, he saw a defender. And Steven Jackson brought up a good point. When a team plays a boxing one, they're telling you, we don't want you to get off offensively, that we're focusing on you. And the Warriors made that very clear that anybody else on this Mavericks team could beat us except Luka. We are not going to let Luka beat us. And it was evident in his shooting, 10 for 28 for 28 points. A lot of step back threes. I mean, I was even surprised Bielitsa played some pretty decent defense on Luka. And Bielitsa also came out and gave you some good production on the offensive side of the ball as well.
Hit a big three there.
They did. You know, the Warriors, they really stand by that stigma that they go by, strength in numbers, and they just send in players in waves. And I was proud of that Golden State franchise.
I thought last night they defended Luka the best they had all series.
They have, and Looney again stepping up big, just being a presence in the paint, getting those rebounds, you know, and you know you can tell that Dallas started to focus on Looney a little bit more in this game because he got so many easy buckets at the hole. So if you paid attention to it in the first half, it was a lot of deflections, and you know, when Looney touched that ball down low, they were like, do not let him get free open range. We're going to stick him like we stick Steph on the three-point line. But Looney stayed the course, started picking up good offensive rebounds, getting good defensive rebounds. Looney he's been a presence this whole series, actually. Like, I
think Looney's a very underrated player.
He is. You know what? He's so old school. He got an old school game. He doesn't go with the rah-rah. He doesn't yell in people's faces. He just comes out and does his job. I like Looney. Kevon Looney, he definitely showed up. Andrew Wiggins played some great defense on Luka Doncic yesterday. The Warriors did good by chasing the Dallas Mavericks away from that 3-point line. You know, they were scattering. When that ball started moving, they were zigzagging everywhere, making sure Dallas was not getting clean looks at the 3-point line. So the Warriors did what they were supposed to do. Steph Curry had an off night, but close out Clay. You know, that's my new name for Clay. We no longer call him Game 6 Clay. We no longer call him Game 5 Clay. We call him close out Clay, because when the game is on the line and you're about to be eliminated, Klay Thompson is the last dude you want to see at the 3-point line with an open shot.
And I'll let both you guys answer this. How much do you think that Wiggins has raised his stock with the year that he's had this year, making the All-Star team for the first time, and he's been big in the playoffs as well. He's a big contributor. I think he's raised his stock a lot.
I don't think he's actually raised it a lot. I think this is the player that everyone thought he could be when he was drafted number 1 overall to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
He just never had a chance really to showcase it because he never had that supporting cast around him in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he has that supporting cast around him, he's showing that he is the best version of himself when he's not the primary option.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's obviously proven that he can be a primary option in Minnesota because he did that for 4 or 5 years when he was there. But as a primary option in Minnesota, he was giving you 19 to 20 points a night, which, I mean, it's consistent, but it's not all-star caliber, especially when you're taking number 1 overall.
Mm-hmm.
Goes to Golden State, he's the number 3 option and sometimes the number 4 option,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still giving you 18 to 20 points a night, which shows that you get the more talent around him, he's still going to put up the same type of numbers that he was putting up when he was the man. And now I think for him, yes, I understand that he wants to get paid. Yes, I understand that he's going to want to get his bag or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He would be foolish to leave Golden State at this point,
Mm-hmm.
become a number 1 or a number 2 option somewhere else when he's had the success he's had this year.
Mm. I agree with Dustin. I think, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's funny that you score the same amount of points and really have the same game, but depending on your position on the floor determines whether or not you're playing like an all-star. So as a number 1 option, him scoring these amount of points and still bringing that defensive presence wasn't enough to get him an all-star nod. But going to the Golden State Warriors, becoming a 3rd or 4th option, still scoring the same amount of points, and being able to fit in his role as not being the primary scorer, but being a go-to scorer if needed. I think Wiggins is not elevated his play. It's just brought a different spotlight to him. I would have to say that Andrew Wiggins has shown his value as far as being a 2-way player in this league, because he's shown that clearly he can play defense. I don't think he's worth max money or even second option money. But we do have to remember he did get an all-star nod this year, and he's been a main reason of why the Golden State Warriors are going back to the NBA Finals. His defense on Luka has been amazing throughout this Dallas series. And as I mentioned on my show on Rob's 2 Cents, even though Luka still got his points, those were very tough points. And as we all know, the great saying, you're not going to stop a great player, but you can slow him down. And I believe he got Luka a little flustered. That in turn made the Dallas Mavericks flustered. And you can tell a lot of times that this team was not playing the way that they had played against the Phoenix Suns in that previous series. So shout out to Andrew Wiggins, man. I know eventually the Golden State Warriors are going to look out for him, but what he needs to do is be patient, stay the course, get as much money as you can, but leaving this team right now was not an option, because you would clearly see without the Golden State Warriors, you're not going to look the same, Andrew.
And I think I agree with that. More than that, he really improved his stock. I agree with what Dustin's saying. He's really more validated a little bit of his pick, even though he hasn't played at number 1 pick level yet. But at least people can't say he's a bust anymore. A lot of people were counting him as a bust. I think this year he proved he's not a bust.
Yeah,
he still might not live up to being a number 1 pick overall, but he's definitely improved his position in that by having a great year this year. And I think he's going to be his defense is going to be a big part of the series in the finals, whether they play Celtics or Miami.
Yeah, because they're gonna need him to stick Jimmy or Jason or Jalen, because we know with especially Boston, sometimes if Tatum doesn't have it and Jalen Brown is going off, and what a luxury you have to say, okay, Clay, you stick Jason, Drew, you get on Jalen, or the other way around. So I think Clay is starting to come back in form too with the Golden State Warriors, especially at the right time. I just think it's going to be tough for whoever plays this Golden State Warrior team. As you mentioned earlier, Chris, with the ball movement, the way they play as a unit, and not to mention one of the things that's always been underestimated or understated with the Golden State Warriors is their defensive play. This is still one of the top defensive teams in the league. Just ask all the teams they played in these playoff series if it's easy to score on the Warriors.
What do you think, Dustin?
What was it? Sorry, Rob, I didn't catch all that. What was your last point?
I was just saying that the Golden State Warriors are still a top defensive team in the NBA, and I think it's going to be tough for whoever plays the Golden State Warriors with the way that they play collectively as a unit on both the offensive side and defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people always overlook the Warriors on, because they pay so much attention to the offensive numbers they put up. Take away last season when Golden State sucked because everybody and their mother was hurt last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they've been a top 5 defensive team since Steve Kerr has gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, the offense is good, but offense is only going to get you so far, and it's ultimately the best defensive team is typically the team that wins the NBA title. And Golden State has been a top 5 defensive team since Steve Kerr has been here. And you couple that with a top 3 offensive team basically on a yearly basis, they've been a tough team since he's gotten there. And I said this before you popped on, that you look at the 2 series or the 2 NBA finals that Golden State lost. You had the one where Draymond Green got ejected and then was suspended the next game, which kind of gave Cleveland all that momentum to get back into it.
I dubbed that game the Nutcracker.
And then you had Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson both go down against Toronto, where that could have been a different series had they both been healthy, because Golden State still forced 6 games in that series even without both of them being down. Golden State realistically could have won 5 NBA titles in a row. Mm-hmm. And then last year, obviously, they weren't going to win because everybody was out, and now they're back in the same position they are this year. They could be on the verge of winning 6 out of 7 titles had everything gone the way they expected. And that just shows you the type of organization they have, and their window still is not closed because this entire roster is going to be together for another 2 or 3 years. So out of a 10-year stretch, you're looking at a team that could end up going to the finals 8 out of 10 years and coming away with at least 5 NBA championships out of it.
You know what? What Dustin was just talking about, putting all those recipes together. You smell that? It smells like championships.
And honestly, they might have had a chance at 7 in a row if they don't have injuries.
Oh man!
Yeah. Well, you can't say that because the Klay Thompson injury happened in that NBA Finals, right, so you knew he was going to be out the next year anyways. Yep. So that's why I said they could have at least gotten the 5 in a row, but because even when Thompson came back from his injury, he re-injured himself.
And then, not to mention, remember Steph Curry broke his hand as well.
So that year they weren't going to go anywhere that year.
You're definitely not going anywhere without Steph. Steph, and a lot of people want to give Steph slack because sometimes he's not. I mean, when you're a shooter, it's going to be nights where you go 5 or 17. I mean, the ball is not going to always go in the hole. But if you ever watch the Golden State Warriors, especially when they're playing at home, he not only revitalizes the team, he revitalizes the arena every time he hits a 3. I was looking at a play last night. He misses the layup. He thought he gets fouled. He shoots a floater. He thought he got fouled. Goes to the right corner. He gets the ball right back out the offensive rebound. Shoots a quick 3. It goes in. Everybody just goes crazy. He's complaining to the ref that he didn't get a foul. But everybody in the arena, they just go crazy when he hits a 3 because you realize, it's just like watching Michael Jordan dunk, watching Dr. J dunk. When you see this man shoot a 3-point shot, you know that this dude has changed the game. He's the reason why you go to these kids' game and they're trying to pull up from half court. I go to the basketball courts now. It used to be people screaming Kobe. Now they on the 3-point line screaming Steph Curry. Curry Flurry, this dude is just amazing, man. Steph Curry has changed the game. He's made it possible for unathletic guys like myself to feel like they're a real part of the game just based off shooting ability. And of course, we know we can't shoot like Steph, but we can always dream, right?
I think this year he'll finally get his finals MVP, which I felt like he should have already had. But
me too.
And then finally that's why people try to hold against him. Every time you talk about football, he didn't still have finals MVP.
Yeah,
okay? He's been a league MVP. The dude's done everything, best shooter in the game, and he still gets hated on by a lot of people just because he don't have a finals MVP.
You know what? It amazes me with that. He's a 2-time league MVP, 1-time unanimous. The only unanimous MVP ever, not even the great Michael Jordan, has been a unanimous MVP. Now, we know sometimes that could be due to hate because back in the day, I think players voted on it as well. But let's be real. For everybody to say that has a vote to say you are undoubtedly the MVP of this league, that means something. So you've been a 2-time MVP. You've been the All-Star MVP, a 2-time scoring champion, a 3-time NBA champion, the best three-point shooter to ever live. I don't see why Steph Curry still gets so much hate. I think people just hate winners.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if they hate winners. I think it has to do with some of the people that he plays with. A lot of people don't like Draymond Green because of the stuff that Draymond Green's done. Obviously, there's people that don't like Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, up until when Kevin Durant got to Golden State, Curry was loved by everybody.
Yeah.
Like, nobody had anything bad to say about Curry. But then the moment Kevin Durant gets there, people's opinion changed a little bit on Curry. Not because of him, but because Kevin Durant was there. And it was kind of like, well, how good is Curry if Durant is here helping him get these rings? Well, obviously he's good enough to get Golden State back there because Durant ain't there and Curry's going back. So,
do you think that Durant going to the Golden State affected Curry's legacy?
I don't think it did at all because he wasn't the reason why Durant went there.
Yeah.
Durant just chose to go there just because that was the team that he was beating 3-1 in the playoffs the year before that and let it slip away.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically said, if I can't beat him, why not join him?
Yeah. And he liked the way that they played. I truly believe Durant took a step back, looked at the Golden State Warriors, looked at the way he played the game. It was like, you know what? That offensive play set fits my play set. I don't need the ball to score. Draymond can continue to be the point forward on this team. I become even deadlier with two of the greatest shooters to ever play in this game on each wing, and you got me coming up the court and I'm not too shabby a shooter myself. So I think Kevin Durant really looked at the landscape of the Golden State Warriors and say, man, we can really build something here. But once he got there, I think he looked at how much fans, no matter what he did, still looked at Steph as the man of his team, and he realized this will never be my team. This will always be Steph. The way that LeBron looked at Dwayne Wade in the Miami Heat, he looked at the landscape and said, I can score 100 points out here, and they're going to be singing the praises of Dwayne Wade and not me because this is Wade County, not Bron County. And, sometimes that could be a tough pill for a star player to swallow.
Yeah, and one point you had made a little bit earlier about Curry. Even if he's not hitting his shots, him just being on the floor is going to give space for other guys.
Everybody, because you can't take your eyes off of him. I don't care if Curry goes 0-10. I bet you're not going to let him get an open 3-point shot. That's the last thing you want is for that man to see the ball go in the hole because then okay, I might be in trouble for a Curry flurry.
Do you think KD left the Warriors because he wasn't ever going to be the number one guy there, or do you think it had more to do with him and Draymond going at it a little bit?
Nah, that business.
I think it had to do with money.
Yeah,
because he wasn't going to be able to get the money he got with Brooklyn had he stayed in Golden State.
That's a good point. I
think the most Golden State could have given him was 25.
Yeah. Well, money and status.
Brooklyn got his 40.
Yeah.
You think he regrets that decision now? The way things have happened with Kyrie.
I don't think he regrets it just because at the time you never expected COVID to happen. You never knew that a vaccine mandate was going to be put in. You never knew what his beliefs were until he basically came out and said what his beliefs were. So I don't think he regrets it because at the same time, look at how close that Brooklyn came to eliminating the Bucks last year in the
Think
playoffs
so.
in that second round where Kevin Durant single-handedly almost beat Milwaukee on his own.
I would say I don't think he. You know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he regrets it. I think he's looking at what he left. He has to be. I mean, it's human nature. You have to be sitting at home looking at the Golden State Warriors' success and realizing that I'm the reason I'm not on that team. Not Golden State, not the coaching staff, not any of the players, not anybody in front office. It's me. I wanted to lead this team to come to a team to play with my best friend and Kyrie, to form this big three with James Harden, and you know, it just didn't work out that way. I think he regrets looking at how professional Steph Curry is and realizing that, yeah, me and Kyrie are friends, but sometimes you can't play with your friend. Sometimes you have to go with the best business decision. And he realized, especially a guy that has investments and deals in Silicon Valley, you made a bad investment in the Brooklyn Nets. You already was good as gold with Golden State Warriors. And now you come to this Brooklyn Nets team. Kyrie doesn't want to get vaccinated. Now, you only, at one point in time, you couldn't play with him at all. Then you can only play with him at away games. Couldn't even play with him when he was in Brooklyn. James Harden was like, well, I'm not going to stick around for this. Then you get a Ben Simmons who, didn't play at all, like I said on the morning show. You left the Splash Brothers for the Are You Playing Tonight brothers. Bad investment, KD. Bad investment.
I don't see. Here's the thing that I think about it. I don't think Kevin Durant regrets leaving at all. I just think he fell into the Stephen Curry trap, and I'm not gonna. And this is not any disrespect to Stephen Curry. He fell into the Stephen Curry trap because the way he played in Oklahoma City was perfect for the Golden State style of offense, which is why he went to Golden State, because he played the same style that they played, which is why he had so much success in Golden State. Leaving Golden State for Brooklyn, yes, you're still one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, but you cannot play that Golden State style in Brooklyn. And I think he ended up getting too comfortable with that Golden State style that he kept trying to push it in Brooklyn, which is what led to the injuries that he's had. Because he was trying to push it and play that same style that he had with the Warriors, and it's not going to work because Brooklyn doesn't have the same personnel around him to play that style.
What is Brooklyn going to have to do in the offseason to be able to compete for a championship next year?
Realistically, nothing, because you still have Kyrie, you still have Durant. There's going to be no vaccine mandate next year, so Kyrie's going to be with you for 82 games. You got to remember before
that's if he decides he doesn't want to take a sabbatical.
He hasn't played more than 65 games in like the last 7 years.
It wasn't just the vaccine, and that's what a lot of people get that confused at. It wasn't just the vaccine that kept Kyrie out. Kyrie decided that he didn't like the way that black people were getting treated, so I'm not gonna go to work. He looked at I want to go party with my sister without a mask. He did all type of things that it wasn't just a vaccine. Kyrie is a head case, man.
Yeah, the other thing, the other thing that people didn't realize too, once the playoffs started, Brooklyn was down Joe Harris, one of their better shooters. Brooklyn was also down Patty Mills, probably the best bench player they had. So they were missing a lot of people once the playoffs started, and obviously not having Ben Simmons didn't help. But you go into next season, if Kyrie plays, you have him for 82 games. You still have Durant. You're going to have Patty Mills back. You're going to have Joe Harris back 100%. Blake Griffin and Aldridge are still going to be valuable bench options. Brooklyn has the pieces that they can compete. It's just going to be that Ben Simmons is going to be the key piece. Whether he stays and gives Brooklyn the defense that Ben Simmons is capable of, that makes him an immediate title contender with his defense. But if he decides to leave, what does Brooklyn do to fill his void?
Now, this is my thing. In order for Brooklyn to become a championship team, I think is look at Frankie. I think it's going to come down to, will they first, what's going to happen to Steve Nash. I think coaching was a major issue, not just for the adjustments that weren't called, but also I don't think he had a very good control on anything his team did. I think I've said this on every show that I've been on, including my show. I would have checked that stuff on day one, the day my team came out and said we don't need a head coach. Yeah. We would have talked in the locker room, and then I would have set my ass out and said, I want to see y'all play without me. And once my point was proven, I'll say, can we get this show on the road and play together? I think he let too much stuff slide. As a head, I don't think he
ever had the respect of his team.
He didn't. And it's bad. You know what I'm saying? Your team has to respect you as the leader. Once we figure out what we're gonna do with Steve Nash, I'm actually gonna get him some consultation because I think he needs some help as a head coach. So maybe not a Mike D'Antoni, but whatever previous coach in the league I can find to just sit with Steve Nash to be that voice in his ear, we would get that squared away. Once we have that squared away, I think we have the personnel on our roster to get the job done. I think it's going to come down to talking to Kevin Durant talking to Kyrie first and asking what his commitment level is so we can figure out how much we're going to pay him. Once we get the money out the way, then we're going to try to, get this team together. We're going to figure out what we're going to do with Ben Simmons. I think they have enough to become a new big three for the Brooklyn Nets. And it's just going to be a matter of availability. The best ability is availability. And as long as they have the personnel there to play, you possibly keep going Dragic. I think the Brooklyn Nets can still be a deadly adversary in the Eastern Conference. It's a matter of coaching and who's going to actually be on the roster.
Do you give Kyrie Irving more than a 1-year contract?
No.
Can you trust to give him a multiple-year deal?
No,
I don't.
You can't.
Because the thing is, if you got one time to tell us you don't want to play, and we're not resigning you next year, I don't give a damn what Kevin Durant wants.
Who do you think they bring in as a coach?
I would keep Steve Nash, give him a second chance. He's going through those early coaching growing pains, but after that, like I said, I would try to see if I can maybe get one of these coaches that's not hired right now, maybe even a Mark Jackson, just somebody that could be in his ear to give him some consultation when he needs it, because clearly I think Steve Nash was still in the mindset of a player. He has to get his head set in the mind of a coach. These are not your friends. These are your employees, so to speak. You got to get everybody in line.
Trying to switch gears, what do you think the Mavericks have to do to improve their team to get back to even the Western Conference Finals next year, or make it further to the finals?
They're gonna need a big man. They definitely need a big man.
I think Miles Turner would be a good fit there.
Oh, Miles Turner would be a great pickup for them. He plays defense. He can get you some rebounds, give you second chance possessions. And he won't get in Luka's way. He also can space the floor as well with his 3-point shooting.
Dallas can come take Vucevic from Chicago.
They can have him as long as we get somebody else. But I think right now Dallas needs to focus on getting a big man, and then possibly a second star to go along with Luka. But as I mentioned earlier in the morning show, what superstar is really going to want to play with Luka with him being such a ball dominant player?
Honestly, I think a lot of them will. And it's just because this is how I see it. Yes, he is a ball dominant player, which there's not a lot of players that like to play with ball dominant superstars. But what's the biggest difference for Doncic as opposed to other ball dominant superstars? He's at least smart enough to know that when he is not feeling it, he doesn't need the ball in his hands. And he does what he needs to do to get other people involved.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, he does the rebounding, he does the assisting, even if he's, like, driving the lane. Like, people, obviously, if he's driving the lane, people have to, like, collapse on him so he doesn't get to the rim. but then he can kick it out to Kleber and he can kick it out to Brunson and everybody else. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people love about Luka. Like, yes, he is such a ball-dominant player because he has to be. He's the point guard, but he's also smart enough to know how to get other players involved.
Yeah, and really the only weakness he really has would be on defense. And I think a lot of that on defense is just sometimes effort.
And he's gotten better at that too, and he showed it this postseason.
Yeah, he has gotten better. There was a couple times last night, but he just didn't have effort. But I mean, it's a long series. I'm sure he was starting to get tired too because he was carrying the load the whole playoffs. And for him to get that team to the Western Conference Finals, I think was a success because I don't think anybody expected him to get that far this year.
No. He just pulled a Derrick Rose when Derrick Rose took the Bulls to the conference finals, where literally Derrick Rose had no help at all. He had a bunch of either former All-Stars or a bunch of people that were kind of getting to the back end of their career that were just brought into Chicago for veteran leadership, and Rose basically single-handedly got them to the Western Conference Finals, and then they got the doors blown off by Miami. You could say the same thing about Luka, where it's a little bit of an opposite end of the spectrum where Dallas had one of the youngest rosters in the playoffs, so they have a lot of players that don't have that playoff experience. But outside of Luka and an occasional Jalen Brunson sighting, there's nobody else on that team that's going to be a starter anywhere else.
Who do you think is going to be the favorites next year in the NBA to win? Because you're going to have Zion coming back to the Pelicans. That's going to make the Pelicans a lot better, I would think. You're going to have some of these other teams that maybe get healthier and be better. So I think the league is going to be a lot more teams that are capable of making the playoffs next year than what we had this year.
Yeah. I agree, but I still think the Warriors are going to be miles above everybody else. And that's just because if everybody on this team comes back, if they're in the finals now, if they win the finals and everybody else comes back, how can you not look at them and say they're the favorite just because their entire roster will be back after getting to the finals? And then you have to look at everybody else in the West. New Orleans is on the rise because you're going to have Zion, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum kind of being their big three. See how they kind of do together. You're going to have teams in Phoenix that are going to be in question. What's going to happen with Chris Paul? Going to lose any of those pieces? The Lakers are still a mess. I mean, they have to figure out what's going to happen with LeBron, with Anthony Davis, the rest of that team. You have the Utah Jazz. It's going to come down to it's either Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell this offseason. Both of them are going to be gone, so Jazz are going to be different. Denver's going to be the team that I think will be on the rise next year just because you're going to have Murray back. You're going to have Will Barton back at full strength this year. You're going to have Porter Jr. back and obviously Jokic, so that's going to be a team to watch. But outside of that, I think the West is pretty much going to be a Memphis and Golden State again next year because Memphis is young. And the rest of the teams in the West, I think, could see a decline. Then you go over to the East. You have to put Boston up there just because Boston has Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart.
They're probably going to have about everybody back.
The Bucks are going to have everybody back, but the question is, are they going to be able to keep Bobby Portis? Are they going to be able to keep Grayson Allen and some of those bench pieces that filled in for Chris Middleton so that could take a hit? Miami is Miami, and they might lose pieces, but they still have Spoelstra. Spoelstra's going to be good enough to get them there every year. Philadelphia is going to possibly have a full year with James Harden. Is that going to matter? Is it not going to matter? Chicago's going to be better or worse depending on what happens with LaVine or what happens with Lonzo Ball and his knee. So, I mean, the league I think is going to be a lot more wide open than it was this season next year. But I legitimately think there's only going to be really 2 or 3 teams that are going to be considered the title favorites. I think it'll be Boston, Milwaukee, and Golden State. I think it'll be the 3 that are going to just be the favorites, and everybody else will kind of be sitting in that distant, like, oh, you have a shot to get there, but you probably won't.
Yeah, and with Golden State, if they have everybody back, that you get one of your better defenders back too with Gary Payton. Get him back, Wiseman,
and then James Wiseman too if he's healthy.
You get both them back next year. That's even going to make the Warriors a better team because Payton, when they lost Payton, I thought it was really going to hurt him more than it did because of his defense. He's good on the defensive side.
He is, and that just shows you again of how good of a coach that Steve Kerr is because what most coaches would struggle to kind of replace that guy like Peyton. But Kerr goes in there, Peyton's gone, and he just kind of does what he needs to do. And the team is, in my opinion, better. They're better with Gary Payton, but they're playing better without him right now. Just because they're kind of getting back to that pre-Kevin Durant style play where it was, we're going to make three-pointers, we're going to play tough defense, and we're going to play small ball on you and force you to adjust, and teams just can't adjust well when Golden State plays small ball.
And a couple of their young rookies have played well here in the playoffs, and even in the Western Conference Finals with that Moody and I can't remember their guy's name now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember either.
Kuminga played well.
Back with you guys. My bad. I'm sorry.
Not acceptable.
Hey, you know I'm at work, man. Look, I love doing ASAP, but you got to take care of the job that pays the bills, man.
We were talking who's going to be the favorites next year going into the next NBA season with some of the changes and people getting healthy. One team we didn't mention was the Clippers. What do you think the Clippers will be competitive next year, getting George and hopefully Kawhi back?
Yeah, they're going to have to get Kawhi back.
That's the thing, though. I don't trust Kawhi. I don't trust his knee anymore.
I don't trust him no more than I trust Kyrie Irving.
I mean, at least I know Kyrie Irving's going to be on the court. If he can play, at least I know Kyrie Irving's going to play. But I just don't trust Kyrie. I just don't trust Kawhi's knees anymore. I don't think he will ever be able to play more than 60 games in a season anymore. I really don't. I think his knees are so far gone and so far shot that if you can get 60 games out of him, you're going to consider that a win just because, I mean, look how much he's played the last 2 years. He's given them next to nothing the last 2 years, and even before that, his knees were already declining after he won the NBA title. Which is very weird because Kawhi Leonard is not a player that you would typically associate that's a guy that has knee problems. Because he's not somebody that does all the super athletic stuff driving the lane. He's not somebody that does all these freakishly athletic things where his knees take a toll. He's a pull-up jump shot shooter and a mid-range jump shot shooter. So for him to have all these knee injuries, it is a concern because he's not a player that you would associate knee injuries with.
Yeah, because he's not, like you say, he's not a guy that uses his athleticism all the time. He's a jump shooter.
Yeah, he's athletic, obviously, but he's not somebody that's going to slash the lane and dunk and do all this stuff. He's a guy that plays very similar to DeMar DeRozan, where he gets the ball in his hand, pulls up, shoots a mid-range, gets the ball in his hand, pulls up, shoots a mid-range, and that's not somebody you would think that would have knee problems.
No.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. But I still think if Kawhi Leonard plays, he's going to be a problem for people in the Western Conference. Now, I don't trust his knee. I don't know how much of a two-way player he still is. The thing is, because did they ever say, did he tear his ACL or? I just know he was out for knee problems. I don't know if the ACL.
He tore his ACL or his MCL or whatever the heck it was, one it was. He did that, and then he had where he had to have arthroscopic knee surgery because his bones were rubbing against each other, and that's another thing too. Like if you tear your ACL and then right away need arthroscopic surgery to fix it, that's a big concern. That just means that your tendons in your knees are gone and you have nothing left at this point.
I would, and also too, something that's going untalked about. Where does Damian Lillard go? Because I don't think he wants to stay in Portland anymore, especially with CJ McCullough gone. So that's going to be something to watch out for. Where's Dame Dollar going to play? Because I'm pretty sure he's watched this NBA season, he's watched these playoffs, and he's itching to get back out there on the court. I just know he has that competitive drive. So that's going to be a good question. We're on Damian Lillard watch. As far as the Clippers, Dustin, I mean, I think you kind of just talked me out of what I was going to say because you're right. Having all of those knee surgeries, we don't know the type of player Kawhi is going to be. I honestly think if we're looking at the Western Conference, you're going to be looking at Denver. You're going to be looking at Golden State, of course, and you're going to be looking at Grizzlies, depending on how healthy Ja Morant is, because he's also been going through some knee issues as well. And I just think he's too young to be going through all of these knee issues. But we saw Steph Curry go through all those ankle issues early in his career, and he seemed to pan out. But also, Steph Curry doesn't have the same athleticism that Ja Morant has. So it's going to be interesting to see. I still think the Warriors are going to be a favorite to be in the Western Conference. If we look out east, Chris Middleton will be back. You never know who Milwaukee will be picking up. Milwaukee's still going to be a powerhouse in the East. Brooklyn will as well. As long as you got Kevin Durant, I'm not going to count that man out. And then also in the West, I forgot to mention the Los Angeles Lakers. If they keep LeBron James, I just think LeBron is going to have something to prove. I can't go against the Kane.
I can go against them, because even if they keep him, the big thing is, unless they can trade Russell Westbrook, what's going to happen? They are not going to be able to give LeBron any help unless they can get rid of Westbrook. And at $49 million next year, there is not a team in their right mind that's going to take on that contract.
I think if you can't get rid of Westbrook, if I'm LeBron right now, I'm with Russell Westbrook as we speak. I'm talking to him. I'm figuring out what can we do to make each other successful, because I don't want to make you look bad. I don't want you to make me look bad. I think if anybody, and I know we've said this last year, and I was one of the people that was looking cockeyed. I'm like, Russell Westbrook, when they said he was coming to the Los Angeles Lakers, but I did say if anybody can make it work, it's LeBron. I still believe in that. I believe LeBron has something to prove, not just to himself, but to everybody in the league, that, if I can get Russell Westbrook a championship ring, you're gonna have to put me in that conversation of being the GOAT. So I think, especially if he passes Kareem too on the all-time scoring list, which he eventually will next season. So I'm not going to discredit the Los Angeles Lakers as of yet. I think if Anthony Davis comes back healthy, we never really got a chance to see LeBron, AD, and Russell on the court together. And
they played 13 games together.
13 games. Come on, is that really enough to say that? I mean, we can't even build chemistry in 13 games.
They were 2-11 in those 13 games.
They just got together. Those are three contrasting styles of basketball being played. They didn't have a chance to make that work. They didn't even get a preseason together, anything, because everybody was hurt.
And Anthony Davis is another guy I can't trust, because I can't trust him to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And when he plays against a team that gets a little physical with him, he seems to disappear a little bit.
He crawl. If you get physical with Anthony Davis, he crawls into a hole and disappears.
Well, it's kind of like what you're seeing with Adebayo in Miami. Williams is on the court. Adebayo's you don't even see him nowhere. Williams is on the court, and Adebayo starts going off.
Hey,
you don't like
Robert
that physical
Williams
style.
is a different animal.
Oh yeah, but maybe he don't like that physical style.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do with finesse type players. You punch them in the mouth. Everybody got to play until you get punched in the mouth.
Rob, I don't think we got your thoughts on it. What do you think about Colin Kaepernick getting to work out with the Raiders? And do you think it'll open up other opportunities for him to maybe finally get a chance? What Dustin had said about the XFL, that he thought that'd be the best option for Kaepernick, because he could go there, play well, and then get an opportunity next year in the NFL. And like we were talking, maybe even the starting opportunity if you play good in the XFL. But do you think this will open up more opportunities for him?
I think so. I think he's had a great workout in Oakland. I haven't confirmed anything, but the fact that, the
nothing negative that came out about it.
Right, nothing negative. Nobody said oh, well, Cap is washed, or you know what I mean? And the media has been so into it. So, like we talked about earlier on the morning show, I don't blame Josh McDaniel for what he said and taking up for his quarterback and Derek Carr, because that's just what a great head coach does. No need to concern you guys with thoughts of what I think about a player that's not even officially a part of this team as of yet. But I think Colin Kaepernick can help some teams in the NFL win if he can play any resemblance of what he used to be. I mean, we got to remember, he took the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl, and then right back to the NFC Championship game within 2 years in a row, beating Aaron Rodgers, also who a lot of people say is one of the greatest, at least regular season quarterbacks to ever play the game. So I think Kaepernick can definitely help a Seattle Seahawks, can definitely help a Carolina Panthers, maybe even possibly a New York Jets, win a couple games. So I think if he's not playing in the NFL again, that's some great analytical work by you guys, bringing up the XFL. Somebody's going to want to pay to see Kaepernick play. As I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of the world has turned around and re-sided on their side of things of how they felt about Kaepernick and his protests. I think after seeing the George Floyd situation and all the other situations that's happened in this country with police brutality around minorities, they see that he wasn't just blowing smoke up your ass. These issues are real life issues. And especially the George Floyd situation, watching a man die on live TV, it definitely changed your perception of what's really going on out here. So I think Kaepernick will be playing football again. Where is a big question. I don't think the the Las Vegas Raiders need him too much, just off the strength they got Skidum, ex-Patriots quarterback to back up Derek Carr. He knows Josh McDaniels' system. He knows what Josh McDaniels wants. So maybe having Kaepernick as a backup, you don't really need for the Raiders, but any other team, I don't see them turning them down. But also remember, Baker Mayfield is yet to find a job in the NFL. With Cleveland getting ready to let him go, they're trying to figure out where they're going to put him. So, it's going to be interesting to watch to see where everybody is going to go by the time the NFL season starts. But unless you in that AFC West, boy, I don't know what to tell you.
Do you think that Cleveland's having trouble trading Baker, or do you think that Cleveland's waiting to get rid of Baker because they're waiting to see if Watson gets suspended?
No, I think they're having trouble finding.
I don't think they're having trouble at all. I think it's what Chris just said, because I said the same thing.
Yeah.
I think they're waiting to see what happens with Watson first. Because if you trade Mayfield now and then all of a sudden you find out that Watson can't play, what's your option? You don't have one. Versus you keep Mayfield, at least you still have that option.
Yeah. I think they're having problems because I think teams are playing the waiting game. They're like, why do we have to pay Baker when you're going to have to eventually pay him?
They won't have to pay Baker. Cleveland would be stuck. Cleveland would be the one stuck paying Baker Mayfield. Regardless.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So other teams are like, why would I do that? Why would I let you trade for him and then I take on that contract when I can get you to pay him and then I pay him what I want to pay?
Like I said, I think he's going to end up in Arizona.
Behind Kyler Murray?
I don't think Kyler Murray plays.
You think he's going to MLB?
Nope, I think he holds out, like he said. And Cliff Kingsbury tried to recruit Baker Mayfield in college. I think Mayfield ends up in Arizona if Murray does not play.
Yeah, I think Murray's going to end up in the MLB. I really do. I've said that since he got drafted, though. I've been on that train the whole time.
Yeah, I was thinking Baker Mayfield might end up in Seattle.
I could see that, or Carolina is where I was thinking.
I was thinking Seattle, but just because I think with them letting go of Russell Wilson, Seattle wants to get a new start. Baker also needs a new start, and I think it'll just be better for both parties to see what Baker can really do. Especially you got some nice receivers over there, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Let's test that arm and see how great of a passer Baker really, especially with that deep ball, and Tyler Lockett is a deep receiver. So,
yeah,
they've already said that Tyler Lockett is on the trade block, though. That's why I don't see them bringing in a guy like Mayfield or anybody if one of your two best receivers is on the trade block. There's no reason to bring him in if you're planning on moving Tyler Lockett.
So you think Seattle's going to go more into like a rebuild mode?
I think Seattle's waiting until next year when they can go after Spencer Rattler, when they can go after CJ Stroud and some of the guys like that. I think they're just going to ride it out with Drew Lock this year and just basically whatever we finish with is what we finish with, and we'll try to hit a quarterback next year.
It might. Well, you think Carolina would want Baker over Darnold?
Carolina should want anybody. over Sam Darnold.
That's why I was thinking Baker might end up in Carolina because Darnold
Carolina should have made the move from Malik Willis, but they didn't. So
yeah. All right, let's go to final thoughts. You guys have any final thoughts before we get out of here for the afternoon?
I can't wait to see next Tuesday, first game 1, Boston Celtics versus the Golden State Warriors. The Celtics are going to close it out tonight. As I've said all the time, I just don't think Miami has enough to contend with the Boston Celtics. They got a lot of internal issues, especially injury problems. And we don't know, the real status of Jimmy and the rest of that team. I just think Boston versus Warriors game 1 is going to be a great one. And it's going to be fitting, too. Boston wins tonight in Boston, getting the Larry Bird Eastern Conference Finals trophy MVP. It's fitting that it'll be Boston winning that. So shout out to Boston. Can't wait to see this exciting finals. A defense versus defense. It's going to be a great one.
How about you, Dustin?
Yep, I'm just getting to the point where it's my favorite time of the year. I know everyone likes to talk about March Madness as kind of like their favorite time of the year, but I actually enjoy the college baseball playoffs more than March Madness, and the conference tournaments have started this week, and then regionals and super regionals are set to follow that with the selection show Monday at 11 a.m.
Yeah, I'm actually was thinking about this afternoon going over to Ball State. They're hosting one of the tournament sites, and Ball State plays today. I think if they win, they make it to the NCAA tournament in college baseball. They were the number one. They were the number 1 seed in the MAC. So they got to host the tournament here in Muncie.
Enjoy your baseball, gentlemen.
So I might try to get out there this afternoon. I'm waiting on my buddy to let me know because I don't have a vehicle because she had to go to work. So I'm getting a hold of him to see if he wants to go watch the game for a little while. But all right, you've been watching that ASAP Afternoon Blitz. Thanks for joining us on behalf of Stat Guy Dustin Reese. We got Rob Scott from Rob's 2 Cents. Make sure you go check out his show.
Yes, sir. Oh, also too, before we leave, again, happy Memorial Day to all of our fallen soldiers out here who's fought for the freedoms of this great nation, for us to sit here and talk sports with you guys. Much love for our armed forces, our brave men and women who continue to fight the fight every day. We salute you. We thank you. And, our thoughts and prayers are with our fallen soldiers' family. So happy Memorial Day, guys.
Hey, and it's official, Rob. I'm coming to Chicago on Sunday, so do what you can do to get out and have lunch with us on Sunday.
Yeah, I told you, just let me know. Let me know. Maybe we do some hamadas or something. I'm always down for some hibachi.
And also, if you're having any kind of mental issues or you need some help, go get help. There's no shame in getting help. Go talk to somebody. That's better than ruining your life or ruining somebody else's life. Go get some help. There's no shame in it. But we'll see you guys. Hey, Monday. We'll see you guys on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
At 1 p.m. Are we doing Monday because of Memorial Day? You holding off till Tuesday?
I'll probably do Monday because I'll just be sitting here watching sports anyway.
Okay.
I'll be at home, so let your boy know, 3-day weekend. I'm not answering no emails until Tuesday after the day.
Yeah, we'll do Monday. We'll still do Monday at 1 like normal. Because like I said, I'll just be sitting here watching sports on Monday. So, but all right, thanks for joining us. We will see you guys Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you guys Monday.
We go.
sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.